All right. Well, hello. Welcome to the Toilet of Hell. I would like to introduce my guest today, guitarist, vocalist, songwriter, producer, and butthole surfer, Mr. Paul Leary. Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on the Toilet podcast.
Yeah, it's a hell of a name. So, I figure, today would be a good day to talk about the upcoming release of After the Astronaut, which is finally getting an official release. How are you feeling about it? Are you excited?
I'm very excited. I didn't think I'd ever see the day when that record would come out.
Yeah.
It was supposed to come out like a quarter of a century ago, and Capitol was ready to put it out. They had mixed it, mastered it, and sent out promo copies. And then we got into a bit of a skiff with the label with Capitol Records. Our manager went back to doing dope, and our relationship soured, and we got dropped. Not so much dropped as just put in limbo. They still owned our contract, but they just wouldn't put our record out, so we were kind of stuck. And it was a couple of years of hell. And Hollywood Records eventually bought that album out, but they wanted to change it. And so they removed some songs and had us record some new songs and had us change up the songs that were on there. And we never liked that record. I didn't like that record. It was a painful process. We wanted to do things our way. And I was going through our band storage space a couple of years ago, and I ran across the 2-inch multi-track analog tapes of that album, and I got excited, and I called, got a hold of Hollywood Records to see if they'd let us put it out the way we wanted it out, and they said yes, much to their credit. I can't believe it, but they did. So I brought the tapes home and mixed it in my home studio, and that's getting ready to come out.
Yeah, no, I'm very much looking forward to it. I've heard it when I was first going through all the Butthole Surfers records in order, listening to After the Astronaut and comparing it to Weird Revolution. It was pretty clear that there were outside forces forcing y'all to do things certain ways. I can't remember if this is a rumor or not, but is it true that Kid Rock worked on Shame of Life?
He co-wrote it, and he played guitar on it. He originally sang on it. The deal was Kid Rock had used some Butthole Surfer samples in some of his music, so he owed us money. And Gibby, the deal maker, talked to him and said, "We'll let you use those samples for free if you'll co-write a song with us and sing on it." And he agreed to it. He came to Austin and went into Gibby's home studio, and we all hung around for a day. And Kid Rock co-wrote a song and played guitar and sang on it. And then a few weeks later, we get the message from Kid Rock's management saying, "No way we're going to let Kid Rock sing on a Butthole Surfer song." So we had to go out and find a Kid Rock sound-alike to replace his vocal parts, but he still has his guitar, and he's still a songwriter. And Hollywood ended up making a single out of it and a video, which is actually a pretty fun video to watch. I'm not a huge fan of the song or anything, but the video is fun to watch.
No, yeah, I will agree that the music video for that song is quite cool.
They spent a lot of money on it. They had grown men dressed up as squirrels, and the grown men in those squirrel outfits had actually been in the original Planet of the Apes movies. They were apes in Planet of the Apes movies, so it was fun hanging out with them and talking about Planet of the Apes. And there were live pigs on the set. I think there were like 2 or 3 live pigs that we got to hang out and pet. They were real sweet.
Awesome. So yeah, I feel like you inadvertently answered a number of questions I had, which is awesome, because I was going to ask a bit about the process of going through and remixing the album and kind of if your goals for that were any different than when you were working on it originally in, I believe, was it 98 After the Astronaut was supposed to come out?
That's a long time ago, and so it's around that time, somewhat time between 98 and 2000.
Yeah.
Dark time for us, and get snubbed by our record label, and we lost a lot of our fan base when we had a hit song in Pepper. People considered us sellouts, which was always my goal, was to sell out. But apparently some of our fans didn't care for that so much. But that's the way it is. Now we're feeling a lot of love again. People are starting to like the band again, and that feels great.
Yeah. I think Electric Larryland is incredibly underrated as a record. I think that album's awesome. Big fan of the sound on it. But that record, correct me if I'm wrong, was the band's first time as a three-piece, correct?
Yeah, we had Andrew Rice from the Rollins Band come in and play bass on a couple of songs, but I ended up playing whatever bass was there, and the song Pepper did not even have a bass guitar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that was the same. That was a similar case with the recording of After the Astronaut. Did that inform sort of the more trip hop electronic style, or was that a continuation of the experimentation that was being done during the Rough Trade era with PO'd and Widowermaker?
It was just what we were doing at the time. We'd lived together for so long, and it was such a relief to finally be away from each other and have our own places to live, and that we ended up recording things in our own home studios and then passing hard drives around, and then eventually taking it into Arlen's studio in Austin and adding vocals and some keyboards and doing some experimentation on a few things.
Nice.
So it was a lot of fun to make that record. So that's why I'm really glad for it to come out, because if a record's not fun to make, then it's a shitty record.
No, absolutely. You can definitely tell when listening to an album whether or not the artist was into it while making it, and I definitely get that impression from After the Astronaut. And I wanted to ask as well, the presser that we were sent had mentioned in one of the quotes that it was a lot like recording Locust Abortion Technician, in that you got to experiment with a lot of new kinds of technology and such. And I wanted to ask maybe a little bit of detail on like how that recording process went, and if there were any like memorable stories from the experience.
And for After the Astronaut?
Yeah, for After the Astronaut.
One of the things I remember most is my favorite song on the album is called "I Don't Have a Problem," and it's real ethereal sounding. And there's no drums and no bass and no guitar. It's just ethereal, and there's these strange vocals that we got. King brought this device into the studio one day that could intercept cell phone calls. It was illegal, and it's probably still illegal, but he had one, and so we turned it on, and these voices started coming over, and we hit record as fast as we could, and got this guy talking about women having knives and daggers, and that was so much fun. It reminded me of like the making of an old song of ours called 22 Going on 23, where I recorded a transistor radio in the middle of the night where everybody else was asleep, and then put a song around it the next day. So it was kind of that kind of vibe, and so that made it a lot of fun to be able to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say that it was a lot like 22 Going on 23, and I think that's one of my favorite Surfers songs. And as such, I mean, yeah. No, there's a lot of really great material on this upcoming album. My favorite was The Last Astronaut. I found that to be a very, I would say, especially like emotional song, just because of the intensity of the lyrics and performance. And, in addition to the sonic changes, I do feel like there was definitely something different going on with the inspiration behind the lyrics, to my ears at least, on songs like The Last Astronaut and Jet Fighter and Mexico. It seems like a lot of themes specifically around war and religion and such, and I was wondering if you could elaborate on maybe some of where the band's head was at and how that informed the lyrics.
Well, I can't speak to Gibby's lyrics so much other than, it's always fun to work with him and seeing what he ends up blabbing out. I know that on the song that you just mentioned, what is it, After the Astronaut or The Last Astronaut?
The Last Astronaut.
What is it? The Last Astronaut. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're the one.
I get confused.
Y'all are the ones who made the song.
And I'm the one that forgets about them as soon as they're done. But there's like a segment at the end when the music stops and Gibby just keeps blabbing, and it's like he's a doctor or somebody talking to a sick kid in a hospital, and that was spontaneous, and that's the kind of stuff that I live for. I think we all live for that.
Absolutely, yeah. No, the spontaneity is what makes the Butthole Surfers the Butthole Surfers, really. Yeah, so we kind of already touched on a bit of what happened with Capitol and then working on the record with Hollywood as well. And from the sounds of it, were there pressure to try and recreate Pepper from the studios, you felt?
Somewhat, they didn't like come up to us before we started making the record and say, "Hey, you need to come up with another Pepper." But prior to Pepper, Capitol kind of left us alone, other than like hooking us up with John Paul Jones to make an album, which was a whole lot of fun. We were a little too weird for them to even have any idea on what to do with us. And then we have a hit song in Pepper, and then all of a sudden they were very interested. And it was a little strange getting used to a label being that interested in what we're doing, and that probably led to some of the tension that ended up getting us released from the label.
Yeah, I follow that. We can move on a little bit because there's more going on in the Butthole Surfers camp. There's been a documentary that's been in the work for quite a while, and
5 years. 5 years.
I was trying to remember because I've been keeping an eye on it since I heard about it, probably around 2020, 2021, and so I wanted to ask you a little bit about what was it like working with, because director Tom Stern has been working with y'all extensively for a long time now, correct?
That is correct. We go way back with Tom Stern. He directed a short video, him and Alex Winter, called "Coming to Texas" or something like that.
Yeah.
You can find it on YouTube. It's pretty stupid and pretty funny, kind of slapstick funny.
It's great.
And Tom has been a big fan of the band for a long time, and we know him, and I know what he's capable of doing. And that short video that they made was supposed to become a feature-length movie starring the Butthole Surfers. But when they sold it to Fox or whoever bought it, Fox didn't want the Butthole Surfers in the movie, and they replaced us with Keanu Reeves and Mr. T and Brooke Shields and Randy Quaid and this all-star cast. And we were relegated to doing some music for the video, and I think Gibby had a little cameo appearance. But that movie got made, and the president of the Fox or whoever bought that movie left, and the guy that replaced him hated that movie, and so it got shelved and never came out. And they were getting ready to burn a bunch of movies in the Disney tape vault, and somebody pulled that movie out and gave it back to Tom and Alex, and they did a screening of it at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood 5 years ago, and invited me to go out there and play live guitar with the movie, kind of like an old-fashioned movie. And that was a whole lot of fun, getting to play, stand in front of a screen and play music that I'd recorded for the movie. And I was staying at Tom Stern's house, and then he brought up a documentary, and all of a sudden my ears perked up because we've had a lot of people approach us to do a documentary, and I never felt comfortable with anybody doing it. But Tom, I knew what he was about, and I knew what he was capable of. He's a wonderful comedic writer, and I felt like we needed a little bit of a comedic edge going into it. It's a pretty funny documentary to watch. It has its sad, tragic moments at the end, but it ends on a high note. And Tom did a fantastic job. He spent years interviewing the band and other people, and he really wanted to get to the meat of the story behind, especially like Gibby, who people ask Gibby questions in interviews, and he tends to come back with funny, flippant answers. And Tom was not satisfied with that. They're funny and they're in the movie, but he kept pounding and pounding until he got Gibby to open up about trauma in his childhood and trauma that I never knew about. And all of a sudden things started making more sense to me, but it makes the story complete. And credit to Tom Stern for doing that. He hired a really good editor. And the editor, the editing makes the movie, because it's not just a bunch of talking heads talking about the band. It's like clips from edits put together, and it makes it fun and entertaining to watch. And I think you'll be pleased seeing it.
I think so too. Is it still looking for a distributor? Because I know it's been making the festival rounds for a while now.
It's spent the last year going around to film festivals all over the world, and it's been getting tremendous, great response. I've been to a few of those screenings, and there's been some standing ovations, and the Q&As afterwards have been a lot of fun. The last I heard was that it's going to have at least a limited theatrical release this summer and then some kind of streaming deal. But I don't know any of the details yet other than I've been promised it's going to be out this summer. So
Awesome. That's
going to be a fun summer.
that's a massive worry off my back because I've been wanting to see this, so like I said, since it came out. And I was wondering, so yeah, the band has been a bit more active in terms of putting out, there were some live releases, this album now, and the documentary. Is there anything else the band's working on that you could tell us about, or is it more hush hush, so to speak?
There'll be a box set eventually, but that's gonna be a lot of work because there's a lot of stuff from the vaults that I want to go through, and that takes time and effort. And I'm a pretty lazy motherfucker these days. I like to ride my bike and go swimming and take naps and all that shit. So I'm going to have to work myself up to get a box set together, and that's probably maybe the last thing that we'll do. But it has been strangely active this last few years. We signed with Matador Records to put out our back catalog of everything prior to our signing with a major label. Mm-hmm. And they've done a good job, other than they took one of our songs off of one of our albums. That's been the only regret there. But other than that, they've been fun to work with.
Can you tell me anything about, upcoming plans for the individual members? I know your solo career has been a little more active as well. You've had an EP, you had Born Stupid in 2021, there was that re-release of A History of Dogs, and or is more of your time going to be spent towards, like you said, some of that archival work? Because imagine that's its own full-time job in itself.
The only other thing is I know that I'm going to be working on some more solo stuff, and then I've been recording music with some friends of mine, and that'll eventually become a band, and there'll be no touring or anything like that. So it'll be low budget release kind of thing that no big hopes or expectations for any of that. But it's to the point now that we pretty much do whatever we feel like and don't have to consider the money aspect and that kind of stuff. So it makes it fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Born Stupid, I think, was a fantastic record.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so I look forward to seeing what comes out of the band in any aspect. And I wanted to go into a little bit of what you were saying with, feeling some more love nowadays. And to me, it feels both surprising and not surprising, because I feel like a lot of the sort of post-internet absurdist humor is sort of built to perfectly allow the Butthole Surfers to fit into it. And if you look at bands like Chat Pile and Nerver and other such, there's a tiny bit of a noise rock resurgence as well, which was a scene that the Surfers always sort of seemed to be on the periphery of. So I wanted to know if you could go into any detail of the more of the love you felt.
Well, just it started out with feeling less love back in the 90s when we had our albums coming out on Capitol, and we had a hit song, and suddenly our old fan base was kind of turning on us. And the new fan base wasn't really that but strong of a fan base. It was, to them we were just a one-hit wonder. And so it was a little strange, and I just felt like people didn't like the Butthole Surfers anymore, and that was fine. To me, we were an art project, and the whole point in my mind was just the absurdity of it all. The fact that the Butthole Surfers could sign to the same label as Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra and the Beatles and Grand Funk Railroad and Creedence Clearwater Revival. It was too much to pass up to be able to do that, because it was absurd. And then having a hit song, I mean, the Butthole Surfers having a hit song is absurd. And I thought that was worthy in and of itself, but to a lot of our old fans, it was not. And so I kind of forgot about it over the years. And then we started working on the documentary, and we're going to screenings, and all of a sudden I'm being mobbed by autograph seekers and that kind of stuff, and it's been nice to feel the love again. And I think people have forgiven us for signing with a major label and selling out, but selling out it's just too perfect for the Butthole Surfers.
Yeah. I mean, what's the weirdest thing for the weirdest band to do? And that would be to go mainstream. But yeah, so it's shaping up to be a pretty eventful 2026 for the band and their legacy. And I guess another thing I wanted to ask you about was the Butthole Surfers are no stranger to iconically strange moments, and I wanted to know if you had a few that stick out in your head as your favorites.
Well, I don't know about favorites, but the ones that stick out would be a show we did on our very first trip to Europe, where we played at a big festival in Rotterdam, and we were playing with bands like Alex Chilton, and we had a really good slot, and Gibby went off. He was throwing chairs into the audience as hard as he could, and he ended up naked, and he ended up running around the festival, and he almost died that night. And I had to drag all the band equipment from the venue to the hotel by myself because everybody just left, and I couldn't carry much, so I would take stuff and put it behind a bush in the park and then go back and get another load until I had all of our band gear out of there, and Gibby's overcoat was out of there, and then went back the next morning to retrieve it all, and there's Gibby's coat with $10,000 in the pocket sitting behind a bush. That was memorable to me. And then we had a show at the Danceteria in New York in the mid-'80s. We were a bit upset because we were in Los Angeles at the time, and Danceteria New York called us up and wanted us to play 2 nights. And so we drove from LA to New York to play a 2-night gig, and we got there and they said, "Oh, you're only going to play 1 night now." And so we were pretty upset about that. And that show went pretty crazy, and Gibby ended up naked a couple of songs in, and we had our naked dancer Kathleen for the very first time, and they ended up, having sex or simulated sex on the stage, and the stage was on fire, and I think I went around with a screwdriver and poked out all the speakers in the PA and monitors, and the venue got super upset with us and said we'd never play New York again. And a week later, a kid fell down the elevator shaft to his death at that venue, and they were out of business, and we were playing at CBGB's for twice the money. So
yeah,
those are the memorable times for me. But other than just the whole experience of working with John Paul Jones, that was special, and I'll never forget that. And I love that guy. And I learned a lot from him that I applied to my own producing career, and so I'm grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah, and I was wondering as well if you had any particular favorite bands that you've worked with as a producer. I know two of the more notable ones would be like the Meat Puppets and Sublime, but I was curious to hear your opinions on that.
Well, my first job as a producer outside of the Butthole Surfers, I really was kind of the producer for our early records. Mm-hmm. I knew I wanted to be a producer, and then I wanted a job, and I was into this bluegrass band from Austin called Bad Livers, and I used to go see them every week at the Saxon Pub, this little tiny club in Austin, and they were so much fun. It was banjo and fiddle and a stand-up bass, and they covered all the traditional bluegrass songs and Jimi Hendrix and just all over the map, and they were really good and really fun. And I told them I'd take them into the studio and pay for the studio if they let me produce it, and they agreed to that, and came out with an album called Delusions of Banjo, which was put out by Touch and Go. And then my favorite band at the time was Meat Puppets. Mm-hmm. And, after we worked with John Paul Jones, Meat Puppets wanted to work with John Paul Jones. And they asked me to contact John Paul Jones and see if he'd be interested in producing him. And I thought for sure he would. I'd played a lot of Meat Puppets for him when we worked together, and he turned them down. And so I called him up to give him the bad news. And they were like, "Well, we like that Bad Livers album. Would you produce our record?" And I was like, "Hell yeah." So that was my first paid production job, and that ended up with a radio hit and a gold record, and an opportunity to record another album with them. And while I was working on that album, I got a call from Sublime asking if I'd be interested in working on their self-titled album. And I'd been listening to Sublime on the radio driving to work every day. There was a punk rock station in Phoenix that played Date Rape just until the cows came home, and I loved that song, and I couldn't believe that I was getting a call from Sublime, to work with them. So that was I can't even remember what your damn question was now.
Oh, I was just asking some of your favorite bands that you've worked with. So sounds like
My most recent production job was a fellow named Gus Engelhorn, and that record just came out recently. And Gus is a real fun guy. He's a former professional snowboarder who blew his knee out and became a musician, and his wife plays drums, so it's more or less a two-piece band. And I love their music, and I love the sound of his voice, and I love everything about that band. And we recorded an album, an entire album in a week, and it was just so much fun because they were so, they didn't drink or smoke or anything, and they were agreeable to ideas and so capable of doing whatever you suggested, and that was a lot of fun. And that's a really fun album. I'd like to plug that record.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's called Broken Balladeer, and
yeah,
that was one of my favorite ones.
Hell yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I'd also like to ask, the Butthole Surfers were kind of always a pretty singular band, all things considered, but I was wondering if you knew of or favored any bands that you feel like carry on that sort of weirdo spirit that the Surfers did nowadays.
I'm embarrassingly out of touch with music. I've been producing so much that it's really difficult for me to listen to music. When I'm driving in my car, the radio's off now, and I just as soon watch Judge Judy as listen to music. So
that makes complete sense, to be fair.
I love watching TikTok. There's a band I love that I see there called the Velveteers. I think they're a lot of fun. I don't know if you've seen them or not.
Name's vaguely familiar, but I'll check them out.
Oh, if you see a video of them, you'll know them immediately. It's got two drummers and a female front, the boy drummer and a girl drummer, and they have matching drum kits with matching heart-shaped kick drums. And the girl who's the front, the singer guitar player, has this monstrous guitar sound. It just sounds like the earth cracking open and demons coming out. They're a lot of fun. And and I like the band Muttley, and I like Father of Peace. But they're all on TikTok, and that's where I get my music from now. So.
You're definitely not alone in that. Have you seen? Gosh, I can never get the name out right, but have you seen the two-piece microtonal French Canadian guys who dress up as space aliens?
Yeah, oh yeah, those guys are a lot of fun. They're like breaking big now.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I wrote a bit about them for our blog, and it's always cool to see people doing something real strange and that getting as much attention as stuff that isn't quite as envelope pushing necessarily. It's very.
Now, they're obviously geniuses, and those outfits and backdrops that they came up with. It's low tech but extremely effective, and so that's just cool as shit. And they're really cool.
I think we're going to see, between them and King Gizzard, I think we're going to see a lot more bands experimenting with microtonality and songwriting, and I'm very excited for that. I think there's a lot of interesting shit to be done there. But so I also wanted to ask you about, do you have a favorite Butthole Surfers album? I'm curious.
I probably have to say Locust Abortion Technician.
It is maybe
it was just fun to make, and that was when we really started experimenting the most, and just the dumbest things in the world that we did. So that's probably my favorite.
No, yeah, that's maybe.
I hated pretty much all of those records until we signed with Matador, and I went through the tape vaults and started remixing and remastering everything, and so I had to listen to everything, and I was dreading that because for the longest time I couldn't stand listening to my band. And then I started doing it, and I was like, yeah, this isn't so bad after all. I kind of was digging it, so it was fun to rediscover myself, and I felt a little better about what we were doing at the time.
Yeah. No, I've always thought that the Surfers there's a lot of layers to go through with those old songs, and there's a lot more going on than I think a lot of people gave credit for. And yeah, I mean, did you have anything else you wanted to say about After the Astronaut specifically? I'm definitely looking forward to it. I feel like re-listening to it, I've appreciated it a lot more than when I heard it the first time in those unofficial capacities.
No, the only thing is that, considering our last album prior to that, our last studio album was such a miserable experience and such a miserable product that I really feel good about ending our studio career on an up note, and that instead of our last album being something I hate, it's going to be something that I love. So
Absolutely.
that's about all I had to say about it.
Was there anything on Weird Revolution that was specifically just for that album that you looked back on more positively than you would have expected to? It's okay if not.
It brought back the fun memories of making it. When we were in the studio together, putting everything together and adding the finishing touches, it was just fun working with my bandmates.
Absolutely.
And I think we all had fun, and that's not all bands like being in the studio. I've worked with bands that hate being in the studio, and it just always baffled me because the studio is the one place in the world where a band can be in control of what's going on. You step outside the door and all bets are off. You just don't know what the fuck is going to happen. But the studio, you can control everything, and that to me is something that not everybody appreciates in a band. They love the live shows, and the live is fun and all that, but God, touring sucks. Ugh.
I feel like every touring artist has not very great things to say about touring, but it doesn't exactly seem like the most ideal situation to be in either. Yeah, I think we've touched on a lot in this about, I think, 30-minute conversation. Is there anything else you want to say to the denizens of the bowl?
No, other than thanks for listening and putting up with us for however long you've been listening to us.
Yeah, well, like I said, absolute honor to be talking to you. Butthole Surfers are, like I said, probably in the running for the most singular band on the planet, and it's a legacy that I don't think any other band will ever be able to touch, and that is, in a way, a beautiful thing. So thank you so much
thank
for
you
your
for
time.
that.
Yeah, and it's been great talking to you. I hope it was half as fun talking to me, because I've had a blast. And I look forward to the release of After the Astronaut, and I look forward to probably even more the release of that movie.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's fun talking to you.
Yeah, thanks. Have a good one.
Adios.